Good evening, everybody. Good evening, everybody. Can I have your attention? It is my great pleasure to welcome each one of you to this very special occasion, the launch of the Inspired Leader by our founder and chairman, Mr. Anil Sachdev. I extend a warm welcome to our distinguished guests, industry leaders, partners, alumni, and friends who have joined this evening. We are deeply honored to have with us four exceptional leaders whose contributions have shaped Indian business and leadership. Mr. Harsh Mariwala, Chairman Marico. Can I have a round of applause? Mr. Nitin Paranjape, Chairman Hindustan Unilever. Mr. Nadir Godrej, Chairman Godrej Industries. And Ms. Anjali Rana, Executive Director, Harvard Business School, and she's also going to moderate today's panel discussion. Thank you all for gracing this occasion with your presence. Today is not just the launch of a book, it is the celebration of an idea that leadership is not merely about achieving success or holding positions of authority, but about inspiring people, creating purpose, and transforming ourselves from within. Through the Inspired Leader, Mr. Anil Sachdev brings together decades of experience in leadership development, offering practical insights and timeless wisdom that are especially relevant in today's rapidly changing world. The book invites all of us to reflect on the kind of leaders we aspire to become and the legacy we wish to leave behind. We hope today's discussion inspires meaningful conversations and fresh perspectives on what it truly means to lead in this world. Welcome once again, and thank you all for being here. We wish you all have an engaging evening. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I'm deeply touched that all of you are here today. It's a privilege to have each one of you. I think it's a great blessing for me in my life to see so many friends and colleagues that I've had the privilege of working with. So I just want to begin by just reciting a prayer in my teacher's name. So Samasajana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Satguru Brahma Vidvaram. I was only 5 years old when I met my teacher, Swami Chinmayananda, and every moment in his presence made all of us discover something special about what we were all about. My parents, my family, my teacher, and then all the amazing colleagues I worked with, they provided the opportunities for me to learn and to serve. So I have so many fond memories with each one of you sitting in this room. Some were colleagues. So I just feel very touched today that all of you have chosen to, on this very rainy day, chosen to come here today. So thank you very much. Thank you. This book was inspired by this idea of one of our co-founders. His name is Arun Jain. And he's been telling me ever since we started the School of Inspired Leadership that I better write a book because the school is called School of Inspired Leadership, and I better write what I mean by that. So that's how this book came. This book begins with this thought that there are two lies about leadership. One, that leaders are born. We all know that that's not true. But second, which is a more radical thought, leadership is not about leading anyone. No one leads anybody. You only lead yourself. You lead by the stories you tell yourself about yourself. In Amitabh Bachchan's famous dialogue, मैं और मेरी तन्हाई अक्सर बात करते हैं. When I am alone with myself, what's the story I tell myself about who I am? That has a profound impact on the way I lead my life. If I tell the story of life as enough, if I tell a story like I was told when I was a child by my parents, they told us the stories about the partition of India and Pakistan, They told us stories about how kind Muslim laborers helped them. My mother chose to tell us the story about how her mother gave refuge to so many Muslim families. So we were given stories about redemption and love and kindness of partition. We were not given stories of something else. So we grew up with these kinds of stories. So I think when you are alone, what do you talk about your life? So that's the first part. I say the stories that you tell yourself, the words can either imprison you or they can empower you. Then I say to myself that, one of the greatest gifts in life is to be given human birth. And for us to understand that the reason we are born as human beings is to understand who each one of us is and the reason why we were born. See, God has made every human being unique. We need to find our own uniqueness. What's the song we have come here to sing? Each time we do our happiest, best, we discover something special about ourselves. Those are the gifts that we have been given. So I talk about that in my second chapter. Then I turn to, there are 4 practices which are so profoundly transformational for ourselves about the way we lead ourselves. First of all, how do we lead the way we learn? When we learn from our past, we call it introspection. When we learn from the present moment, we talk about reflection. When we learn from the unborn future, we are giving ourselves the gift of having the childlike curiosity. So how do we learn? Then the whole practice of how do we think? A part of our mind thinks in an analytical, logical, rational way. The other part is more intuitive, the feminine part. So how do we embrace the feminine, the creative, the innovative aspect to think with the power of the whole mind? And how do we do that? And Nitin, your story in the book about that, about how when aspirations are much greater than the resources, beautiful things begin to happen. Nadir, I'm sure, in a spontaneous moment, he will write a poem just now. I have seen him having the capacity to do that. So he has that powerful creative side to him. So how do you think with the whole mind? Then how do you build trusting relationships? Because trusting relationships are not just about empathy, but about always trying to lead the life of being a go-giver. Because the concept of go-getter is boring. But when you have a chance from your heart to give, then the giving conversation becomes far more important. That's how you build trust. So I talk about that. Then I said all this learning, thinking, and relationships are not enough unless we actually carry out all our intentions into action. So how do we source the stamina, the resilience, the adaptability to carry out all our thoughts in action? Finally, I write to say, all this we do has to be inspired by some bigger purpose in your life. What I learned early in my life that leadership is about following a purpose, and being the best follower is being the best leader. If you stand for something and follow that, leadership happens to you. So the values that you actually live by every day, and every day when I look forward to every day with that joy in my heart that it is another chance for me to make a difference. Like I discovered, Mr. Bhatt, in your story, I remember when you were leading State Bank, you told me how you went to study the power of inspiration from people in the monks. You went to Ramakrishna Mission, you went to Chinmay Mission. I never forgot that story you told me about how people, when you don't have the power to hire and fire, how do you get people to source inspiration from within? So such a powerful story that was. So wonderful. So purpose and values. And then I say to myself, okay, I want to lead a more inspirational life, but part of my mind will prevent me to transform, because the mind is also my biggest gift, but it is also my biggest block. So which part of my mind prevents me to actually realize all my dreams? And how do I take responsibility of then invoking the inner witness in myself, which is watching a part of me wanting to improve, the other part stopping myself? So then the power of the witness from within. So this is just a brief summary of my book. I think it's more written like learning journey I invite you to take with me as you go through the words. And at the end of every chapter, there are some thoughtful questions I have written, and I hope you will journey through the book with me and make it your own journey, because this is more about the journey of all of us. It's not about somebody just writing a book. I hope we can take responsibility of having your own journey. So I am an excuse for you to have a conversation with yourself. So that's what this book is about. So thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that introduction. As you can see, I've read the book with great diligence, marked everything. And I've known Anil for many, many years. And I've seen him actually implement these practices, these 7 practices that he's talked about. And I've also seen him inspire many leaders to reach their full potential. Some of them are in this room as we speak. And some of them used to work with me at Citibank and are now chief executives of their own companies. So I've seen this being put into practice. And I think the best part is what Anil ended with, that the book is actually a sort of a workbook which you can use in your own life. Nitin Noria, who's the ex-dean, the former dean of HBS, spoke about this in his foreword, that this is a book that you can live with. And one thing that he said was that in today's world, we often feel the absence of leaders that we can trust. And Anil's book actually ignites hope that this leadership of inspiring others, of being trusted, is something that we can all build on and we can become by dealing with these 7 practices that he talks about. Provided we lead with courage, clarity, and purpose. So today we are privileged to have with us 3 leaders, Harsh, Nadir, and Nitin, in alphabetical order by first name, so that I don't drop any bricks. And these 3 leaders are actually exemplify the inside-out leadership that Anil talks about in his book. So obviously, in the conversation that is to follow, we cannot read everything that is in the book. It took me the better part of a month to get through the whole thing. But I hope we have a conversation which will inspire you to actually delve into the book and live with it, reflect on it, introspect, contemplate, and eventually build these practices into your own life. So with that preamble, I'm going to start with Nadir. Nadir, looking back, what was the one event that changed your life? And I can see him producing a piece of paper. Maybe we are going to be lucky enough to hear a poem. Nadir. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Anjali. This was a poem I wrote some time ago on turnaround at Valia. It was a factory which had a lot of problems. And I'll tell you the story. And therefore, I'll relate my story, a tale of trouble and some glory. I had no idea what was in store. 1 year, our loss was 80 crore. We wondered why we had invested in something strange and so untested as making olefins from oil. It hardly seemed worth all that toil. But alcohol was an intermediate, not ethyl, which gives an immediate kick to all those who imbibe it. For this audience, I'll describe it as from C12 to C18. And now this change in tack would mean a change in all our strategy. To lead this change was up to me. I did not do it all alone. My team was good, as is well known. The group was there with all its strengths. To help us out, they went great lengths. A merger helped to save our skin. You must survive before you win. We lived to fight another day. Step by step, we found the way. We had to work to make things right. On every front, we had to fight. Now we had suffered for our sins. But since we stopped the olefins, we had 2 columns that were idle. Not using them was suicidal. Configuring them for fractionation, we used them for the preparation of much desired single cuts. And when we settle into ruts, such innovation gets us out. And I have not the slightest doubt our engineers helped save the day the continuous improvement way. With the help of all of them, we started off with TQM. We learned a lot of useful stuff, but all of that was not enough. We learned to stretch capacity with bellicose rapacity. We focused on the bottlenecks with grips that could well throttle necks. And month by month, the throughput rose with just an occasional dose of investment in a plant that's new. We kept the number to just a few. We built new plants for fractionation. We started with our sulfonation. And then we made no olefin, and so we chose to bring it in. Of course, made petrochemical by Chevron, Shell, or Beaton. With Dr. Pandit's help, we tried and made a plant that is our pride. At a low cost, we then supplied good alcohol, sans aldehyde. Others know how fees were high. We could not pay a single buy. The cost of Indian plants is low, and this enables us to grow. From time to time, our plants were down, and this would cause us all to frown. Now, TPM was a solution. For us, it was a revolution. The plants were up more and more. The costs were going to the floor. Everywhere the throughput rose, and we had a healthy dose of cutting costs everywhere. With energy, we took great care. Whatever saving was suggested, we evaluated and invested. With Kaizen, workers played a role in helping us meet our goal. Also felt that they belonged. Their contributions made us strong. The catalyst was optimized, the throughput was maximized, and per ton costs were minimized. The profits were then supersized. Production wasn't the only story. Now marketing brought us some glory. Flake longer chains were our forte. We found new markets for a sortie. In China, we could sell a lot. We liked the margins that we got in Argentina and Brazil. Our coffers, we could slowly fill. Our people are our real strength. We know they'll go to any length. And any problem can be solved if all our people are involved. And TQM and TPM are perfect for involving them. Now, every time shareholders earn, employees also have their turn. The system is just so designed that interests of both are aligned. From the people, ideas flow, and profits never cease to grow. But these lessons one should learn. Your markets should be everywhere. You must ensure that you take care, that all your plants are global scale. Niche markets can help you prevail. Good service is a perfect treat. It always helps you to compete. Since others have done it before, push on, for you can be quite sure that you'll succeed. Have no fears. Employ the best of engineers, for they will help you optimize, and then you'll surely.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And having visited your factories, Nadir, I know that that's all true. TPM, TQM, Kaizen, profits, Anil helped you with it. That's part of it. So thank you very much. Thank you very much. I love the bit about the people being involved all through. Harsh, I'm going to move to you now. If your 25-year-old self walked into this room today, what would surprise that 25-year-old most about the person that you've become?
Thank you. So I have to give you a little background about myself to make others understand. I was born in a business family, and I was the first grandson in the family. A lot of joy when I was born. And my grandfather at that time distributed, I don't know, gold coins to all the servants and everybody. And he also went to an astrologer and asked him, what am I going to do? So the astrologer was saying, this guy is going to go places. Now, as I grow up, I'm not that good in studies. I'm average, of the above average, but I'm not topping the class. I'm not that good in sports. Very diffident, very introvertish, shy. So from that time to today, it's a huge journey. And nobody had in the family also was, this astrology is not going to come right, because I was not showing any signs of, shall I say, growing bigger or succeeding. So I think since then I joined the business. I didn't have any clue what I was going to do. And our business was not in branded consumer goods. It was more in bulk edible oils. So in short, what I did was converted the unbranded to branded, improved distribution network, set up a distribution network, built brands, and became a full-blooded FMCG company. So it's a long journey for me, but I think it just happened by chance. And I believe that all of us have strengths. And can you build a business which is just based on your strengths? Then you'll enjoy the journey. So I was not cut out for a business which had regulatory issues. All my friends, their children, I mean, half the time they would, and I'm talking of now early 70s, they would spend in Delhi getting a license, and I just couldn't do anything of that. I can't entertain people. I can't go to bureaucrats. In fact, in my entire journey for 50 years of business, I have hardly been to Delhi for any favors or any license or anything. So in a way that suited me. I didn't have to go to big buyers and take them out for dinners. It was very easy for me to deal with distributors and retailers and very down to earth. So in a way, it suited my, shall I say, strength of working with individuals at my level. And also my understanding of technology was very poor. So in a consumer-facing business, consumer insights, consumer understanding play a very important role. So, and I thought I was good at that. So in a way, from a zero base, we built this company. And it's been a good journey for us.
Thank you very much. So your 25-year-old self wouldn't recognize the Harsh that is a sportsman, that is mentoring others, that is growing everybody. But I'll come back to all that. So Nitin, your turn. A similar sort of question, little different. What was the inflection point that shaped who you are today?
Oh, hello. I guess in hindsight, the inflection point was the fact that I miraculously got selected by Hindustan Lever. Yeah, I don't say that lightly. I was a good student, not a great student. I never got into the A+ engineering colleges or business schools. And therefore, my selection was atypical of the profile of people that HUL would have normally taken, gold medalists from the IITs, the IIMs, etc. I was none of these. But I did get through. And having got through, I never aspired. I'm saying that just the fact that I got selected was a big thing. I only wanted to demonstrate that I belonged. I was so much in awe of that company. And in a way, in a bizarre sort of way, not having relatively modest expectations, being surrounded by incredible leaders whom I was in awe of, was shaped me and who I am. I have to say, other than the fact that where I grew up and the values of my parents, and that's natural, the next inflection point, if you were to say, is the fact that I got selected. Had I gone into some other organization, there might have been a completely different outcome.
That's fantastic to hear, Nitin, and so nice to see the gratitude that you are expressing, because very often people think, I made it myself, but it's so wonderful to hear that, the half full glass coming through. Anil, I'm going to move to you with a question which is about, you begin the book by challenging the idea, the first lie, that leadership is about leading others, and it's actually about leading yourselves. So why is self-leadership still one of the most misunderstood aspects of leadership?
I think that's because the word leadership is always, it creates an image as if you are getting others to do something. Whereas even when you are getting others to do something or influencing others, all you are doing is you are using your gift of communication or our relationship or thought process. Because all that you are responsible is for your own thoughts, your own emotions, your own actions. That is self-leadership, your own learning. See, the moment you want to achieve something in life and something else happens, you take responsibility that I wanted to go here. Here is where I have reached. And you give yourself feedback on what did I learn. And then moment you say that I can do something about it, I can take an effort to change. That means you never give yourself feedback on your ability that I'm not good at this. The moment you start speaking like that, then you are not practicing what self-leadership is. So the whole notion of self-leadership is by a conscious process of learning, then thinking, building relationships and action, you can actually move there. So that's all you do. Even when you say, okay, you are a big leader of some big movement, what are you doing? When you say you are inspiring people, what are you doing? You are actually inspiring yourself. There are words coming from you which you believe in. And because you are very authentic and you care for that, people choose to go along with you because it is in their interest to do so. So that's why I believe that the world's best leaders are the world's best followers. They follow a cause that they stand for. And the power comes from the cause. Why are politicians and business leaders least respected and trusted worldwide? Because people don't trust what they speak. Because they think this person doesn't live what he talks about. Whereas the moment people see there is some genuine authenticity, that people are trying to do something which they really stand for, the power comes from the cause. It doesn't come from anything else. So I think this is where when people choose to do that. So that's why I talk about self-leadership, because frankly, that's all we are capable of. There is nothing else that we do, but we can only take responsibility for the way we live our life. That's why I was very inspired by Gandhi, who said, become the change that you seek in the world from a very young age. And, you know, Vineet Kaul is here. He remembers I came to participate in a competition on behalf of my school, and he was in the other school. And Gandhi's centenary celebrations. So we had the quiz on Gandhiji's life. So he and I go back to 1969, actually. So I think that's where this comes from. So thank you.
Thank you, Anil. That is really well explained. And I'm going to segue in on this continuous learning portion to Harsh, because in your book, that's one chapter where you do mention the continuous learning that Harsh is an example of. And Harsh, you spoke about the fact that you moved from a family business into FMCG, you know, you transitioned from a family business into crafting and creating and building one of India's most well-beloved, well-known, professionally managed firm. So what did this experience teach you about learning, letting go of control, building an organization that can grow beyond its founder?
See, as I mentioned to you earlier, I'm just a commerce graduate, okay? I didn't study anything further. I wanted to do MBA. I was not that bright to get into any management school. So I told my dad, can I go abroad to do MBA? And he put his foot down, saying, nothing doing, you're not going abroad. Yeah, you're not going abroad. And those days, you know, as kids, we were far more obedient than today's kids, you know. So I said, okay, now, Dad, whatever you say, I'll do. So I joined the organization, which was a completely family managed organization. There were no professionals, only family, friends, and the family, my father and 3 of his brothers. And because of the lack of education, and I had a very strong belief in professional management, you know, I said, you have to professionalize, you have to have good talent, and you have to build a good culture to retain that talent. So the lack of education in a way really helped me, because I would go on reading so many management books and then attend so many management programs, interact with thought leaders, management consultants. So that desire to learn came from my lack of education and belief that professional management is the only way to go ahead. And I think that has really helped in my own journey. When you're small, when The business was small. It was zero base. I had to do everything on my own. I have visited interior markets, visited appointed distributors, did retailing of our products to the retailers from distributors. In small towns, those days, there were no hotels. So I have stayed at distributors' homes and things like that. When it came to promoting the brand, nobody knew in the family or anybody in the organization what marketing is. So we appointed an ad agency. My first request to them was, can I spend 1 week in the agency just to understand how advertising is created? So that zero base, no lack of support from the top, I think that really ignited a lot of learning within me. And that's what I still go on doing it. So my role has shifted over a period of time from doing things in the initial stages to expand you to take people, getting things done. And now it is influencing others. So that role transition also is from doing things to getting things done to influencing others. Is the journey I have undertaken over many years.
Well, thank you very much. You learn a new thing every day. So that's a good one, from doing to influencing. I'm going to move to you, Nitin, because your story in the book is also closely linked to innovation, which is in a way a segue from here. So in a world driven by data and analytics, how do you balance analysis, intuition, and imagination when making important decisions?
I have to say, I'd make two comments. I think if the first 10 or 15 years of my working life, I would have been accused of being excessively left-brained, that if it didn't go from if A, then B, then C, it didn't work for me. Yeah. And at some stage, I quickly realized, and there was an intervention which happened, which more than quickly, I think I realized, while it was important, but also the limitations. Because when you're innovating, you're trying to do something which hasn't been done before. You're trying to find new ways of doing things. And while data and analytics and logic can inform you, for innovation, that leap is required. You have to do something beyond what is obvious. And that requires the power of belief. That requires the capacity to imagine and the capacity to allow your mind to think unconstrained by the very, very tight demands of logical thinking. Yeah? And I think when this realization came, it dawned on me that for a variety of reasons, I had chosen not to develop that part of myself because of certain beliefs about what a good leader is. How do you think that everyone's logical, analytical, unemotional, vulnerability is poor, emotion is weakness? And I think that shift helped me allow for the possibility that you can combine my natural instinct with the capacity to do things a little differently.
So I'm going to ask you a follow-up question. And if it's too personal, you don't need to answer. What was the intervention?
You see, what happened is in the company, from time to time, you would get a coach. So there was a coach who asked me to go around and saying, find a leader who is almost the polar opposite of you, wildly successful, but very different from you. And I was relatively young and I said, it's unlikely. Yeah. So 1 week later, he asked me again, have you found someone? I said, no, but in my mind, I was saying there wouldn't be anyone. Yeah. But he persisted. He says, find someone else. Go search harder. And then in 2 or 3 weeks, I came across two leaders. One who were very successful. And when in that process, I was saying, but they're damn successful. And I started subjecting them to the yardstick that I believed was critical. And on my yardstick, they would probably have scored 6 on 10. But the aha moment was when I realized that on their yardstick of success, I might have scored 2 on 10. Yeah. That then made me realize that, my God, wildly successful, doing things, behaving in a manner which is so different from me. And while that might not be my strongest suit, how can I allow that part of my mind to be underdeveloped? And that allowed me the opportunity to think differently. So that was
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing this. Thank you. So next to me, I have Nadir, who spans both the left brain and the right brain. He's the one guy I know who actually uses the whole brain. And Nadir, you're equally comfortable discussing science, sustainability, economics, poetry, and not only discussing poetry, but writing it as well. So has poetry made you a better scientist and business leader, or has science made you a better poet?
As you said, I've always tried to be whole-brained. And my father was an engineer, but he was also very interested in lots of different things. He was very knowledgeable on geography, history, linguistics. He helped me learn languages, include even French, a language he didn't speak much. He knew a lot about the grammar and pronunciation, and he taught me all of that. So he instilled in me that the importance of knowing different things. And as Nitin pointed out, I'm also a very logical person. But at the same time, Nitin pointed out how important it is to think out of the box. And it's not contrary to be logical and think out of the box. And one reason I was often thinking out of the box was my mother's family was very unconventional. They didn't believe in conventional wisdom at all. They believed in whatever their beliefs were. And I remember even at Harvard Business School, once I answered a question and the professor said, everyone else said the different thing. Do you want to change your mind? So I said, no, I've come to the conclusion that this is the right thing. I don't want to go by what everyone else is saying. So I think it's very important to be both logical and think out of the box. And just as my father had all these different interests, my mother and grandmother were interested in literature, philosophy. My mother was a teacher. She was a psychologist. And she always, she didn't believe in discipline. When you went to her classroom, there was loud noise all the time. She gave the children assignments, including assignments to do things out of the class, including writing a letter to the President of India was sometimes an assignment. And so she believed her children were never scolded. They were taught more by example. So I also got the idea that you can't lead people by telling them what to do, but leadership from behind. You can learn a lot from everyone in your team, as I described while I was busy with the turnaround at Valia. You don't know the answers. They know all the answers. And you can listen to them. You can give them some of your ideas. You can take a lot of their ideas. And the synthesis will help you to lead. And I have written poems about science. And I try to be imaginative while I'm doing science. I've done a lot of innovation. I actually have worked with the people in the labs. I'm a chemical engineer and I learned chemistry. And one of my professors told me to read Double Helix. And so I started studying biology while I was studying chemical engineering. And that has stood me in good stead because biology evolved much faster than chemistry. And so all these things helped me to think holistically. And my father was a very holistic thinker as well.
So I love that. One of my favorite books is by Daniel Pink on the whole brain. And it's wonderful to see a person in front of us. But I'm going to ask an out-of-the-box question of Burgess. Burgess, your father was not scolded by his mother, but has he followed that parenting style with you? Have you ever been scolded? Not scolded. That's because you're really good. Yeah, you're really good. You're a very well-behaved boy. Now I'm going to go to the naughty one. Hormaz, what about you? Almost never scolded. Great. Let's give them both a hand. No. So since the whole, so Nadir, since the whole family is here, missing only one who's in California, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Godrej family. Your competitive advantage in the Godrej family is trust. And so, what have you learned about earning and keeping trust over a lifetime of leadership?
Trust is very important, and it certainly has been for our reputation. And of course, you have to make sure that everything you do is ethical, that customers are properly treated. And we have had a long history of doing this. And Anil was talking about Mahatma Gandhi. The founder of our business, my granduncle, was born in the same year as Mahatma Gandhi. He was a friend of Mahatma Gandhi, and he was a lawyer. And he gave up the law when he had an opportunity to lie and win a case by lying, so he couldn't do that. And so he gave up the law. And then one day he told Mahatma Gandhi, you are talking about an independent India, but this country doesn't have an economy. How will we be independent? So Mahatma Gandhi said, what are you doing about this? So he started a business. And he, although he was a lawyer, he became a self-trained scientist, a bit like Harsh trained himself to do so many things. And he actually made a fireproof safe. He made soaps from vegetable oils without using tallow and lard, which all the other soap makers use. And another concept that Gandhi gave Indian industry, which the Bajajs followed, which my granduncle followed, was the concept of trusteeship. And once you think of yourself as a trustee and not a billionaire, then obviously you build a lot of trust. So all this comes together.
That's really wonderful. The trusteeship is just a different way to think about it. And I remember the story you once told me about the fireproof safe and the fact that it actually was tested because of the huge fire in the Bay.
During World War II, yeah. During World War II, there was an explosion and that spread all over the city, and many of the safes survived.
And so,
killed by fire.
yeah, and we still call a Godrej cupboard, safe. It's a safe. But moving on to something more sporty, Nitin, before your corporate career, you competed in table tennis at the state and the national levels. And what did sport teach you about handling pressure, setbacks, and competition? Is there a lesson from the tennis table that you still use in the boardroom today?
Well, I guess we still play games in the boardroom. So, but on a serious note, I think a lot. Yeah, I think I don't know of any other way by which you can learn a few things. I think sport taught me the power of discipline. What it means to go every single day with the desire of just being a little better. You cannot get overnight success, whatever you try. So I think the power of discipline, the power of focus. In sport, we keep saying stay in the moment, etc. It's so fast. Your mind wanders for a fraction of a second and you've lost half the game. So the power of discipline, the power of focus, and I would also say the power of belief and positivity, that it is not over till it is over. So you keep trying till again and again and again, and you simply don't give up. And last but not the least, I guess it teaches you the joy of winning, but also the ability to lose. Yeah, because you lose more often than you win. Yeah, and the capacity to lose, of course, you feel bad, but not get too dejected. To learn, go back, and come back again for the next day with the same belief, with the same desire. And I guess all of those are still relevant in the corporate world as well.
Do you think we were selecting you because you were a sportsman?
Well, I think we'll have to ask somebody else that.
But I'm going to move to another sportsman. I'm sure that any of you who know Harsh know that he is passionate about his golf, his swimming, his squash. You still play squash? You don't play squash. So obviously sports plays an important life important part in the lives of most people. But Harsh, I'm not going to ask you about your golf. I know that your Saturday game is sacred. I'm going to ask you about something else, which is a passion for you, which is about mentoring entrepreneurs. And you've mentored entrepreneurs through initiatives such as Ascent, the Marico Innovation Foundation. My husband Dishan and I have seen some of the wonderful people that who have grown under your mentorship. So when you meet a young founder for the first time, what is the one quality that makes you think this person might actually make it?
So difficult to describe one quality, but what makes a good entrepreneur? I think first of all, you need to have a idea which has a strong right to win. It's highly competitive environment. And if you have pursued a Me Too business, which does not have any differentiator, it is very difficult to succeed in today's environment. So what is that innovative idea, differentiated idea, does the entrepreneur have to succeed, to enter and succeed in the business world? Having said that, does he believe in talent? Does he believe in culture? Because if you are doing things on your own, and I've seen many entrepreneurs, their biggest failure is that they are not able to delegate. They think that they know it all and that there is nobody else as good as them. So you need individuals who are open to learning from others, who are willing to empower others, who are willing to create that ownership mindset amongst all their employees and build that culture which will make them thrive. And the third thing, which is very, very important, is high degree of governance. High degree of governance. Don't want to deal with entrepreneurs who take shortcuts, who cut corners, who evade the law. I would never mentor a person like that, because I think that's not the way to do business. You have to earn respect of others. And even if somebody is doing that, saying, okay, stop doing that, because it will hurt you at some stage. When you are small, I'm just giving an example. If you're removing cash from your company, you'll do it through others. But when you grow big, that culture of cash generation will be seeped deeply into the organization, and that people will start, okay, the owner is making, why can't I make? So it's very important to have very high standards of governance from day one and not wait, because many entrepreneurs think that, no, when I become, I'll improve governance. But no, governance has to be there from day one.
So that's a really important point. Thanks for raising this. I'm going to come to the next point, which is one of the 7 practices, which is about action. So Nitin, this question is for you, that what separates people and organizations that consistently execute from those that remain stuck in preparation and discussion?
I guess a lot of it is to do with culture and in terms of what you believe in, what you reward. Organizations which I think culture is one aspect in terms of that. And the second is courage. If you have to act, there are times you're going to fail. And the fear of failure affects you so much that you end up doing endless analysis and going on and on and on, trying to reassure yourself. But there is only so much you can do in the boardroom. The rest of it has to be tested in the marketplace. And so it's a combination of the culture that you've created in terms of what you reward, what you recognize, and of course, building a little bit of courage and recognition that some things won't work, but you have to go and do things. And done is better than perfect very often.
That's the resilience that you were talking about, that you need to know how to win and you also need to know how to lose. You'll make a mistake, it's okay. You need to move on. So the last question before I open it to the floor is for you, Nadir, that you and the Godrej family have done so much for the environment. So what will future leaders be remembered for? Will they be judged by what they preserve or by what they create?
Yes, so I would say that it has to be an and you have to preserve what's good in the world, and preserving the environment is vital. If we don't preserve the environment, we're all going to die. And it's also important to create new things while preserving things. And when we talk about business, we always say that we need old values and new innovative thinking. So you have to preserve the old values, and at the same time, you need innovative thinking, and the two shouldn't clash.
I love the both and answer. That's a great one. I do have a couple of more questions, but if there are any questions from the floor, now is your chance. You have these 4 fabulous leaders. Burgess, okay, but you can't ask your father. Okay.
Oh, we can give a microphone, Pragnya. Can you please give a microphone?
No, thank you very much for this wonderful session. Very inspiring. My question was to the leaders on how you strike a balance between representing the company internally and externally and talking about your vision, the communication aspect, and actually the nuts and bolts of running the company. At HBS, we learned about the leader as a beacon and the leader as an architect. So how do you strike an adequate balance between the two?
Firstly, it's hard. Yeah. It stems from recognition that over a period of time, your role changes. In the early days, it's much more about doing and fixing the nuts and bolts and much less about representing the organization. As you progress over time, your role changes. And the way you make a difference at different stages is by influencing, shaping, building a culture, helping people see the things that you see, your vision. So as role changes, the time that you devote to different things start changing. And that helps you decide how you would spend your time.
So in addition to what Nitin mentioned, I think the role changes absolutely as you go at higher and higher levels. But even at the highest levels, you need to have a dual lens. One is, what is the larger vision which the organization has? And at the same time, getting into identifying what are the key issues in the organization, which is nuts and bolts. So that ability to identify what is happening in the organization, which needs to be fixed to go to the higher level. And that happens more at review meetings and things like that. Because I think the key thing is to identify which are the hot buttons which need to improve. And I think that is very important for any CEO to identify. Go straight into the root cause and just say, okay, this is what needs to be fixed to achieve that vision. Just to add something.
My work with organizations tells me that there are 3 parts to it. Maybe about 5 to 10% of the time you think about strategy, which is deciding what new things you need to do. But maybe about 20-25% of your time, you actually get everybody involved and aligned to that strategy. And 70% for most of us, even though you may be CEOs of large companies, is actually about making sure that it actually happens. Which means, is the structure working properly? Is my process working properly? Is the right culture being given to people? Am I spending enough time for building capability of people? All that is execution, actually. So I would say this is what we found, because people sometimes think you're a CEO, so now all your time goes into strategy. I think that's not true at all from my time. So I think that takes only some time, but that's an important time, but only some time. So thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
I always find that we talk about organization and some of us talk about institution. According to you, what is it in leaders that make them look at building an institution that's going to outlast them? What's that one quality or frame of reference versus building a successful business that, earns every quarter and has a great brand? This is for anyone in the panel who wants to answer.
I think the important thing is thinking long term. If you're building an institution, you have to think very long term. And what works in the short term is very different from what works in the long term. And the long term values and all are even more important than in the short term. I always remember an interesting game theory experiment about how a shopkeeper should deal with one-off customer and a regular customer. And they came to the conclusion that it's fine for the shopkeeper to cheat the one-off customer, but he should never cheat the regular customer. And that's why if you're building an institution, you have to constantly serve your customer and be good to him and kind to him and wonderful to him. But if you want to run a business for the short term and run away after 5 years, then you may want to behave differently.
Anybody wants to add anything?
I'll just add saying that I think institutional building, I equate perpetuity of an organization, a business. How does a business continue for years and years after the founders are no more? For example, Levers or Cadbury's or Procter & Gamble. I mean, these companies have been, how many, 300 years, Nitin? Many years. So they've survived. For that, the business has to be very strong. And the business has to be fundamentally strong to, number two, it should be a business which relatively our business is called as defensive business. It is not getting, the technology doesn't impact us as much as many other sectors. So at least I strongly feel that the kind of business we are, and though now it has started impacting FMCG companies also. So strong business. Sorry, what does it mean? I have to stop. Okay. So I think you need to have a strong business. You have to, as a founder, you have to set up not a strategy, but a business direction. That this is our business and we see this business going broadly at it. It cannot be very narrow. It has to be broad enough, but it should be directional. It should bring a certain focus in terms of where you want to go. For us, it is beauty and wellness. So that's wide enough for us to go into all areas of beauty and wellness, but our business direction is beauty and wellness, and we don't want to go beyond that. Number two, you need to have a very good talent pool, wherein if you're not there, there is internal succession planning, internal job rotation, internal promotions will ensure that the company will continue to be mainly led and managed by internally built talent and not from external. Once in a while, it's okay to get externally also. I'm not saying no. But the majority of talent will be internally built. And the third is to ensure, again, governance, which I talked about. And all this could only be done by a very strong board. So the board's role is to ensure that the business direction and the strategy is reviewed regularly, that the culture of the organization is regularly tracked and presented to the board. So I think these are the things which, and also succession planning, because there are two types of succession planning. One is at the board level. If the founder is not there, who will become the chairman? Another is the CEO, who will become the CEO. So the board has to actively involve in strategy, business direction, talent, culture, and governance.
Yes, Arun.
Come here, sit here. One word I did not hear is humility. Mic, you have to make the mic on.
How important is humility in leadership? Because, I have a gentleman here. If you look at Levers, I won't take names. There were people who were very arrogant and there were people who were very humble. Both succeeded. But in my way of thinking, at least the organizations and the people I have worked for, all the three of you here, humility is a very important criteria because it gives you the ability to listen. And if you look at one common factor of all the business houses that have gone down the drain, it is what in Hindi we call ahankar. I can manage anything. So I just want to know how important is humility when you're a big leader.
May I start? I entirely agree with you that non-arrogance is very important. But for some reason, I've never found that humility is a synonym of non-arrogance. I've always had trouble with the word. And I remember what Winston Churchill said about Clement Attlee. He said, Attlee is a very humble man and he has much to be humble about.
Correct.
So I think you should be proud of yourself, but you should be non-arrogant. And for all the reasons you mentioned, and that's absolutely true.
Nothing to add, but 100%, 100% of the belief that humility, in whichever way you define it, is absolutely vital, more vital today than it might have been 10, 15, 20, 50 years ago, because the world is becoming more and more complex. The assumption that one leader will have answers to all of what's going on is simply not there. In fact, however bright you are, you simply can't have that. And the humility to understand that answers can come from elsewhere, the humility to recognize that you could be wrong and be open to is probably one of the most important qualities that you would need going forward, even more important going forward, I would say.
Crucial thing is openness.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I couldn't agree with both Nadir and Nitin. I think humility is very critical. All of us have blind spots. And if we are very arrogant, if we think that we know it all, then others will shut up. They will not come and talk to you. They will go on bitching behind your backs. And that feedback will never come to you. So it's very important to, and humility and openness go hand in hand. And if you have that humility, then you will go on searching from others that, okay, what is the way to improve? And I think that people should be comfortable dealing with you. So humility brings in that degree of comfort. Lowest level also, if somebody is comfortable being with me, that person will tell me, even if that person doesn't agree. So I think it's very important to cover blind spots to get new ideas. But I would say humility is very, very critical for any leader.
There's a very unusual definition of the word humility in a company called Vedanta. When we were working with Mr. Anil Agarwal, he said that in our company, humility means not being satisfied with what you did earlier. If you built a smelter in 18 months, if you built a smelter in 18 months, you could be able to do it in 12 months. So very unusual definition of humility in his company, never being satisfied with what you did, never think that you have the capability because you can keep doing something better. So it's a very unusual company, but I thought that was the way they defined humility. It was quite unique. Anil Khandelwal ji is here, Chairman of Bank of Baroda. I think you may have done something very, very interesting at that time. I wonder how it speaks to your experience when you were trying to turn around that public sector bank. How did that? And Kuldeep, you have just walked in at the right time. Kuldeep Kaura was CEO for Vedanta. I was just giving Kuldeep your example of how Mr. Anil Agarwal defined humility, saying humility means never being satisfied with what you did earlier. So it's very interesting you walked in just when I was giving that example. But Anilji, you may have something to say on that. Yes. Dr. Anil Khandelwal, who was, yes, Pragna, can you, and Mr. Bhatt will then, we have, I'm sure Mr. Bhatt wants to say something on that. Yeah.
See, the trouble in this room is all here on dais represent professional companies. So there is no doubt about their high credibility, but the world is very different outside. As far as my own concept, when you derive results, my concept of humility was practicing tough love, tough on performance, and compassion. That is one thing that 40,000 employees should have. Trust that in case of life and death problem, they can reach out to someone. So starting for 40,000 employees, a direct helpline to chairman and managing director. And we define what are, circumstances they can reach out. So the combination works very well. Otherwise, when you read about leadership, they're all about good things, we all know. but still there is so much of deficit around. I think that's an issue.
Yeah.
Out of 6,500 listed companies, probably you represent on this dais the first 1%. The worry is 99%. So how do we go about creating leadership there?
Mr. Bhatt wanted to say something. I think he led probably one of India's biggest institutions. So, something else. Mr. O.P. Bhatt. Huh?
No, thank you. Thank you. No, in addition to humility, I just wanted to point out something else which I thought could have been part of the discussion. When we have been talking about leaderships, the leaders in this room, it is leadership in situ, in your situation, in your company. But not a word has been said about how leadership impacts your ecosystem, right? See, whatever is there in the world today is the net result of leaders' thoughts interacting. You see, you say political leader, this fellow, this fellow, this fellow. Ultimately, it is the leaders. And I think in today's world, where we are highly capitalistic, where the economies are surging sky high, 99% of the decisions are taken by corporate leaders, either in the board or outside the boardroom or under the table or wherever it is. So whether it is environment, whether it is AI, it's leaders. So whether we are going to make a better world or not, where is it that we get our inspiration from? Where is it that we get our value system from? What is it that gives us courage to fight against the whole damn world? Because I think this is the damn thing that, is the most important. So something on this, and I believe that, for example, we've been talking about value systems and we do this, that, and the other. But if I want to lead my bank to some place, how do I think or visualize what is that someplace? What I used to do was I used to tell them, think where State Bank of India would be 10 years from now. Think. And we used to conduct workshops and some people said, Hamara branch moon mein khul gaya hai. Some person said there is an ATM in Air India plane, State Bank ATM. Think, they came with all that. I used to say, think wildly. Then come back to the present and see what is doable in the next 3 to 5 years and do that, right? So this is only in the context of the bank. But I think as leaders, we have a responsibility to society, to environment, to the value systems, to children, to every Tom, Dick, and Harry. And I did not hear anything about it from some of the best leaders that India has produced and are sitting on this dais.
I think ultimately we have to answer questions based on what questions are raised. So this question was never raised, but let me say, OP, and it was written in this, but she not asked that question. Maybe she wanted to ask it a little later, but organizations need to have purpose. What are you doing? What is the organization created for? And to me, an organization should make a difference to all the stakeholders, starting from promoters, to employees, to associates, to customers, and finally to society. So what is it, that extra thing you're doing as an organization to make a difference to each stakeholder is very, very important. So make a difference to all the stakeholders. Go beyond what is expected to an associate in terms of training them. I mean, we send our ad agency people to a training program at our cost, things like that. So when you do that extra thing, I mean, the motivation it creates is huge, and all the stakeholders are ultimately interconnected. If I do something good for my employees, they'll feel far more motivated. They will perform well. The company will do well. It'll have better valuation. It'll help me in better acquisition. So it's like a continuous flywheel where each stakeholder you have to do something extra for the stakeholder, which will have an impact and which will ultimately impact the other stakeholders.
We also believe that we had to do something for the society at large. And one of the things we did was, because we were invited by Paul Goldman, we joined the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. So we are very active members of this, and we try and prevent climate change and do all of these. And all the members try to work together. The Civil Union, of course, is a very important member of this council. So organizations like this can help solve society's problems, and successful businesses can participate in organizations like this.
And I'm very proud to say that this is one of the things that Harvard Business School actually researches. We call it leadership and corporate accountability. And what we found is that in India, our business, many of our conglomerates, whether it is Mahindra and Mahindra, whether it was the Tata Group, whether it is the Godrej Group, right from the inception, when they started, some of them 100 years ago, 150 years ago, talked about the stakeholder, including the environment, including the customer, including the employee, including everybody, in a way which was very different from the capitalist economies in the United States. And it's a long story, and we can talk about it later. There was a case which the motor companies fought, but we can discuss it later. But we should be proud in our country that this is embedded in the constitution of these companies. If you read the constitution of Mahindra and Mahindra, Godrej and Tata's, this fact that we need to look beyond ourselves and our profits to the longer term is already embedded there.
Yeah, just firstly, I think point well made. So nothing to say about that. I think the way I would describe it is each one of us plays a certain role in society. We've chosen to be business people. And the difference we must make to society at large is through the manner in which we conduct our business. And that gives us certain opportunities. Opportunities sometimes gives us platforms like the ones that you talked about. And I think through that you make a difference. But the biggest difference you make is the philosophy with which you run your business. That's, I think, the point number one. Anjali talked about this point about what you do. In Unilever, we had a line. And since Nadir, you mentioned Paul Polman. When he came in, he reignited in the organization the spirit of the founders and the belief with which the company had been founded. And there was a line that he called out in our vision. He says, our first responsibility, not to share, first response is to our consumers, to our customers, to our partners, to our employees, to our community. When we fulfill these responsibilities well, our shareholders will be rewarded. Yeah. There's a big difference between shareholder wealth maximization being the purpose of business or being an outcome of running a good business. And I think he was highlighting to us that when you do a good job for the system at large, you will lead to those outcomes and for the long term. So that's why everything that was done was about looking at multiple stakeholders, and we talk consciously about the multi-stakeholder model like has been done elsewhere.
A few years back, we met in Barcelona amongst the leaders of management schools, all different parts of the world. And we said, what can we do to transform management education? Yes. So we created a program called Future of Capitalism, in which about 20 schools from all over the world are part of it. Paul Polman heads our advisory body there. And what we are taking, and Nitin also came in one of the sessions that we did. The conversation there is around a whole new paradigm. There is I don't know if you have read this book. If you haven't, I urge you to please read it. It's called The Good Ancestor. It's a very, very powerful book which talks about the concept of deep time. Roman, the man who wrote this book, is a philosopher from Cambridge. He says that all decisions we are taking in our companies today, and even governments, the decisions we make today, is based on serving the needs of people who live today. But we are not even evaluating, for example, infrastructure projects in the interest of the children who will be born 100 years from now. He calls it cathedral thinking. He says, imagine 100 years from now, your picture is on the mantelpiece and your great-granddaughter is talking about you and the people who lived in your time. How is she describing our generation of people who are living today? Did we steal from the future of the children who are going to be born in the future? It's an extraordinary book that makes us think about why are we doing all what we are doing and how business needs to really look at Because even government has started municipal bonds and all these investments. You are looking at discounted cash flows on ROI based on 20 years, 25 years, and we call it long term. But we are not paying attention to the generations are going to follow. So he encourages us to think. I think it's a very extraordinary book. It's a very important part. We end our whole program with calling Roman into the room and thinking that. So I urge us to read The Good Ancestor. It's a very, very powerful book. I urge you to read it.
Talking about books, one other book which I was influenced when we decided to have a purpose statement was Firms of Endearment. It's written by Raj Sisodia and Jagdish Sheth. And that book, they have done a research. It was written about 10, 15, 20 years back. At that time, Good to Great was the bestseller. So they've taken all the good to great companies and they've taken other companies which had, he calls it conscious capitalism. And he combines the returns of these companies with good to great companies and outbeaten the index by a huge margin and just proves that, okay, what organizations can do to each stakeholder. And I think I have had multiple sessions with Raj and Jagdish and all, just to what can we do as an organization to inspire and to make a difference to all the stakeholders. But this is worth reading, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That was a fantastic question, building on the one that Arun asked also. So thank you, Mr. Bhatt. Are there any other questions? Last question, because after that,
Hey, I got lucky.
No, Snehal leads the doctoral program in SP Jain and she's a colleague. So thank you.
A wonderful conversation. Thank you so much. Great insights. My question is, while I wanted to lean on the discussion on continuous improvement, innovation, what is the role of understanding, unlearning, really creating that space for experimentation, failing? It's one thing to say, but our organizations giving that space for unlearning, experimenting, failing, the example of 3M and other organizations that we keep talking about in MBA classrooms.
Well, clearly not enough. Your question would so more needs to be done. No question about it. And that's what will separate the good companies from the less good companies going forward, and the ones which manage to continuously innovate and stay relevant with the changing times, because the world is changing so fast. If we are not willing to shed some of the self-limiting beliefs that we've got, which so much holds us back because of beliefs that we continue to hold. I keep saying something to myself. I'm saying COVID unshackled some beliefs in my mind. Pre-COVID, if someone had told me I could run a global organization sitting at home, not traveling anywhere, things would be all right, I would say I'd bet my pension it's not possible. Yeah, but it was. But it took an event like that to force me and others to give it that possibility. And I keep saying we should now have a mind that we don't have to wait for the next COVID event to explore other self-limiting beliefs and the capacity to unlearn, to relearn. So I would agree. I just one other comment on failure, which I want a nuance on. We keep using the term celebrate failure, celebrate failure. I would say yes and no. I think we must celebrate failure every time you try and do something which has never been done before. And in trying to solve that, if you fail, that's learning. But if someone says we have to celebrate failure, chooses not to follow standard operating practice which has been established out there, that failure needs to be penalized. You have no business not to follow what is established. So sometimes organizations are loose in simply saying celebrate failure. No, we are thoughtful. Some failures absolutely celebrate, and some failures you must come down hard upon. You have no business not to do this because it risks lives, it risks people when there's something which is there. So comment on failure as well as.
Thanks, Nehal. That was a great question. And Nitin, on the self-limiting belief, this is something that, one always thinks that when one walks on fire, one is going to get burned. But Ishan and I have walked on fire, led by a friend of Anil's and mine called Rajiv Dubey, and we didn't get burnt. So, and it was, 20 feet of burning coals. And some of you in the room may have already done that. Maybe Vineet has done it as well. Anil has done it. So there are self-limiting beliefs. So Nitin, that's a great question, end to this conversation. We have we're going to run out of time, but we have 7:30 to 9:30. We can all still talk to each other. So I'm going to end with a, with a bit of rapid fire questions. So in case the panelists thought that their questions are over, they're not. So I'm going to ask the same question, and then all of you can answer quickly. You're not allowed to take long. What's a big book that you gift most often? Nitin, I'll start with you. Why we sleep? You want to stay awake all the time? Okay.
Exactly the opposite.
Okay. Nadir, your turn.
Actually, the book I give most often in my books.
And your poetry books grace my table. So thank you. And you?
Me again, it's my book, which was written about 4 or 5 years back.
Yeah.
But I think the fact that I have taken so much trouble to write the book, and it has a lot of learnings for entrepreneurs, I
And-
want to at least spread my message. And unfortunately, book reading habit has gone down.
It's a beautiful book. In case you haven't read it, it's called Harsh Realities or Harsh Realities.
But it's very sad that, at a 5,000 level, you are a bestseller. What the hell?
Anil, which is the book you gift most often?
Kindle Life by Swami Chinmayananda. And for my teachers, colleagues, I give The Inspired Teacher, again, Swami Chinmayananda. So
Yeah.
that's the book I gift most often.
And Kindle Life is one of my favorites. Okay, I'm going to start with you, Anil. What is a habit that you wish you had started earlier?
My getting up in the morning and going for my 1-hour walk, 30 minutes of pranayama and exercise. I wish I had done it when I was in my 30s. I started it in my late 40s. I wish I had done that, more of that from my younger age. So that discipline that I do for the last 25 years, I wish I had done it earlier.
Harsh?
So in the initial stages, because I didn't have anybody to teach me, I was a bit tentative and not as demanding on people, If there's a weak performer, I would just tolerate. I wish I was far more demanding in terms of getting better and better performers, and partly driven by my own, shall I say, lack of experience. But I wish I could have done that earlier.
Thank you. Thank you. Nadir?
I wish I had started listening to my teams earlier.
I wish I wasn't as arrogant about how little sleep one could need and get by.
Next question, I'm going to start with you. What's one belief that you've changed your mind about?
I've always been an extremely logical person. So I wasn't ready to accept spiritual ideas. And now
That emotion and vulnerability are signs of weakness. And then
I would agree with Nitin. I also felt that as a man, you can't be vulnerable. You can't cry. And in one crisis situation with my management team, I completely broke down. And the closeness it grew between me and the team, I was just shocked.
That in my lifetime, the words made in India is something that we cannot be proud of. And I think I searched for that question large part of my life. And I believe that the fact that we cannot in India be like that is something that, was taught to us. But I am so glad that we were able to challenge that notion.
Great. Maybe this is a great way to end the conversation. Is there any last words that you want to say, Anil?
No, I just want to thank each one of you for coming this evening. And Mr. Kumail Khorakiwala from Monjini's Food is here. He's brought a fantastic cake for this occasion. Many years back in Leh, we had a leadership workshop, which Ishan, Raina and Anjali were part of that. Kumail and his wife Nusreen were part of that. And those unforgettable few days. And the workshop ended on the day the Kargil war broke out. So we were all together at Kargil when that happened. And, so Kumail, thank you. You just back memories with your loving kindness and, your very great gesture of bringing this cake. So thank you. And we'll, of course, cut the cake now. So Kumail, I think the cake is here. So why don't we cut that with the help of all the dignitaries here who are on the dais so we can cut the cake?
yes. I mean, I just want to say one thing based on what you said about Made in India.
Yes.
Our founder first decided to make surgical instruments.
Wow.
And people would refuse to buy surgical instruments if they said Made in India. He refused to fake another origin. And so then he moved on to safes.
Wow. Great. So please, the book is actually in the shape of the inspired leader. Wow. Kumail, please come. Please come.
Amazing.
Yes.
Wow. Turn it around so that.
Kumail, please. Thank you very much. Thank you. And Visti Banaji, you have been the kind host who has enabled CCI to happen. We have been colleagues from the Tata's days. I just want to thank you for giving us this opportunity, Visti. Thank you very much.
Maybe the audience wants to see the.
Yeah, would the audience like to come? Kumail is suggesting to come and have a look at the cake so that we can all be together here. We can also cut it together. Let's all join hands. Many of my colleagues from Aishar are here. Ravind Meethe, Sujata Deshmukh, Kanti Gopal. Many of our wonderful friends and co-creators of Soil are here, like Ashok Ramchandran. Rajiv Mishra is here. Deepa is here from Aprava. My Guru Bhai Rajbir is here. So many. My classmate from management studies, Dilip Saptarshi, is here. Thank you. So many wonderful colleagues. So please.
You know,
This is gorgeous.
Yes. Just absolutely amazing. The creativity, absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes.
So that you're part of the cake.
Kumail, aiye, please. You are the man who gave it up. Aiye na, please. Kumail, aiye. Please, please, please. Please, I insist, please. Please, please, come, Kumail. Aiye, Kumail, aiye. Aiye, please. I hope everyone knows the Monginis brand. It's India's number one in that. Hi, how are you? Mr. Hemant